Good evening. I'm Matt Briscoe, Managing Editor of the Hill Country Tribune. This is your Hill Country Tribune Evening News Update. Senator Dawn Buckingham went to D.C. today to participate in the Women in Healthcare panel discussion that included representatives from across the country and at the invitation of President Donald Trump. In an interview, Senator Buckingham, who represents our area, told me that as a patient, I lost my own health care. And as a doctor, I lost patients because people just could not afford the deductible, she told me from Washington over the phone. When I asked Senator Buckingham about Medicaid, she told me that she feels that the state is doing a pretty good job at reaching Medicaid-eligible families and that she supports block grants over just expansion of the program. Block grants would actually return more control over Medicaid programs to the state. The Senate Higher Education Committee considered a number of approaches to combat rising tuition at public universities here in the state of Texas. Since giving Board of Regents the power to set tuition rates back in 2003, the average tuition rate and fees at public universities has risen on average 148%, increasing the burden on family finances. Amarillo Senator and Committee Chair Kel Seliger said at a time when the job market demands most persons to have a post-secondary degree, certificate, or credential, it's a struggle for families to afford it. The legislature must ensure that the cost of a college degree remains affordable for students and families, Seliger went on to say. Also in committee Wednesday here at the state capitol, the Senate Finance Committee took a final vote on its version of the state budget for 2018 and 2019. Committee Chair and Flower Mound Senator Jane Nelson praised members for their hard work and said she intends to bring the budget before the full Senate next Tuesday. The bill would fully fund the Foundation School Program with an additional $2.6 billion to cover enrollment growth and funds to extend emergency funding for CPS, the beleaguered system within the state, to maintain pay raises and keep caseload down. In all, it spends more than $106 billion in state general revenue over the next 2 years. The budget faces a long haul in the House, facing Speaker of the House from San Antonio, Joe Straus. Oil companies have offered $274.8 million for this year's Central Gulf of Mexico oil leases, more than last year, but only about half of the amount bid in 2015. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management said Wednesday that 28 companies bid on 163 tracts off Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Last year, 26 companies made $156 million in high bids on 128 tracts in the Central Gulf. Wednesday's high bid totaled about 51% of the $539.8 million in high bids offered by 35 companies for 169 blocks in that same area in March of 2015. Offshore production from federal waters in the Gulf of Mexico account for about 17% of U.S. crude oil production and about 5% of natural gas production, this according to the United States Energy Information Administration. A Texas police chief has been arrested following a domestic disturbance and a standoff at his home, during which shot was fired, a police chase, and there was a standoff. In a statement, Lieutenant Craig Cummings of the Texas Department of Public Safety says the incident began early Wednesday with a 911 call from the wife of Normandy Police Chief Charles Herford. Morgan says Herford left the home and at one point eluded sheriff's deputies who attempted to stop his patrol vehicle. Herford later returned to the home where the standoff ensued. He surrendered after several hours of negotiation, but no injuries were reported. Cummings says that Herford was taken to Leon County Jail, charged with deadly conduct and evading arrest. Jail records listed no bond and no attorney. Back in Senate news, the Texas State Senate has preliminarily approved a bill prohibiting coverage of abortion by some health insurance plans here in the state. That's despite similar efforts stalling previously. Wednesday's 19-10 vote leaves Senator Larry Taylor's bill a final, largely ceremonial vote away from heading to the House of Representatives at the state capitol. It bars health insurance plans offered through the Obama administration's health care law from covering the cost of abortions unless policyholders purchase supplemental coverage. Texas never established a health insurance exchange under the Affordable Health Care Act, but state policies are offered via federal exchanges. 25 states already restrict abortion coverage in plans purchased through the Affordable Care Act exchange program. Taylor, a Friendswood Republican, says Texas is behind other conservative localities on issues though a bill doing the same thing stalled in the GOP-controlled legislature last session. In a quote back about the budget, Texas Speaker of the House Joe Strauss said, "This is the Texas legislature. We're not Enron. I'm not interested in cooking the books just to avoid a vote on the rainy day fund." This talking about the accounting practices that he's accusing some of the Republican Senate, they're accusing the Senate of doing to get their budget through. So obviously Speaker Joe Strauss not too happy with this budget. This budget's going to have to face a long haul in the House. Oil prices on Wednesday finished lower as the U.S. government data showed crude stockpiles at a record, but larger than expected decline in gasoline inventories capped the losses. Expectations of higher demand for gasoline during the summer driving season helped to lead oil prices back from their November lows, said Phil Flynn, senior market analyst at Price Futures Group. May West Texas Intermediate crude, CLK7, is up 0.71% and declined 20 cents, or 0.4%, to settle at $48.04 a barrel on the New York Mercantile. May Brent crude lost 32 cents, or 0.6%, to $50.64 a barrel after tapping lows under $50. Yeah, that's your Texas News Wrap-Up for today. I'm Matt Briscoe, Managing Editor of the Hill Country Tribune. We'll be back here bright and early tomorrow giving you the updates from Texas around the Lone Star State. I'm Matt Briscoe. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Have a good night.